October 14th, 3:17 a.m. The digital silence was the loudest sound in the world. Somewhere in a darkened office, illuminated only by the sickly green glow of monitors, a single line of text pulsed on a screen. Your encryption key is now mine. How could an entire global operation, built on decades of trust and proprietary secrets, be reduced to a hostage situation dictated by an unseen adversary? The shockwave wasn't the demand, it was the realization that everything they thought was secure was in fact already gone. The attacker wasn't just holding their data, they were holding the company's very identity. It started 4 months earlier, not with a bang, but with an almost imperceptible digital whisper. A single, seemingly harmless email buried deep within the inbox of a mid-level marketing analyst. It looked like an internal memo, a reminder about mandatory cybersecurity training, complete with an urgent link. The analyst clicked, a fraction of a second of curiosity overcoming protocol. That simple action was the key turning in the lock. The system didn't crash, it didn't alert, it simply began drinking. Slow sips of intellectual property, customer manifests, and the core algorithms that powered a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The infiltration was so clean, so surgical, that weeks passed before the first anomaly registered. A slight, almost musical lag in the processing speed of the main server farm. The first tangible sign of trouble wasn't a breach alert. It was a misplaced file. A document titled Q4 Projections Finalized suddenly appeared in a folder belonging to a department that hadn't even submitted its initial drafts yet. A nervous junior developer flagged it, tagging it as an oddity, a glitch in the matrix. The IT team initially dismissed it as network latency, the digital equivalent of a phantom echo in a long hallway. They ran diagnostics, finding nothing conclusive, only a faint, lingering background process that defied identification. It was like trying to catch smoke with a sieve. The digital whispers grew louder. Sensitive communications began to surface in public-facing forums, seemingly scrubbed clean of any identifying metadata, but the content was unmistakable. Internal discussions about future product launches, thinly veiled corporate strategy. Panic began to set in, moving through the organization like a contagion. The chief technology officer, a veteran who had weathered every conceivable digital storm, stared at the network map, his face drawn tight. Every single red light was dark. The network appeared healthy, operational, yet he knew with chilling certainty that they were being watched from within the walls they had built. They finally found the entry point, the digital scar left by the initial intrusion. It wasn't a sophisticated zero-day exploit. It was a forgotten VPN credential belonging to a contractor who had left the company 2 years prior, never properly deactivated. The attacker had simply walked in the front door, used the back exit to install the payload, and then vanished back into the digital shadows. The realization was crushing. This wasn't a high-tech assault. It was opportunistic trespassing amplified by systemic negligence. The ransomware arrived not as a crude pop-up, but as a meticulously orchestrated system-wide freeze. At precisely 3:17 a.m., every single file across the organization was rendered inert, locked behind unbreakable encryption. The screens in that darkened room blinked once, and then the message appeared, stark white against absolute black. The ransom note was brief, almost polite, demanding an untraceable sum equivalent to 1/3 of the company's annual profit, payable in a cryptocurrency whose value fluctuated wildly by the hour. Failure to comply within 48 hours would result in the data being leaked, piece by agonizing piece, starting with the most damaging proprietary blueprints. The negotiation began under intense pressure. The corporate crisis team, assembled hastily in a secure bunker miles away, debated whether to pay. The legal implications were monstrous. Paying validated the crime, potentially inviting future attacks. Not paying meant annihilation. Every passing hour meant more internal systems were compromised by the attackers' constant probing, searching for new vulnerabilities to exploit even while the ransom clock ticked. They were playing chess against an opponent who could see 10 moves ahead and who controlled the clock. The attacker, communicating only through encrypted chat channels that vanished seconds after transmission, demonstrated their power. They didn't leak spreadsheets. They leaked carefully curated emails between the CEO and the board, exposing internal doubts about a recent merger, information that sent stock prices into a nosedive before the public even knew the extent of the crisis. This wasn't just about money, it was about control, about proving superiority. The ransom was the price of silence, but the demonstration was the true cost of admission. The decryption key, when eventually requested by the nervous negotiators, was not offered freely. The attacker introduced a secondary demand, the source code for their flagship artificial intelligence platform, a project that represented the company's future. This was the true target all along. The data hostage was just the diversion. The attacker didn't want money. They wanted the intellectual engine of the corporation. The request shifted the entire framework of the crisis from extortion to industrial espionage committed under the guise of ransomware. The technical team worked frantically, not to decrypt the files, which they knew was impossible without the key, but to find a weakness in the encryption algorithm itself, a digital thread they could pull to unravel the whole tapestry. They combed through the malware signature, looking for the digital fingerprints of the creator, hoping to trace the origin back to a known threat actor. They found only layers upon layers of obfuscation, code written with such elegance and precision that it seemed almost artistic. It was the work of a master craftsman, someone who understood systems not just to break them, but to fundamentally reshape them. Days bled into nights. Sleep became a memory. The pressure cooker environment began to yield results, but not the ones they hoped for. They discovered a faint, almost invisible backdoor embedded within the malware's kill switch, a failsafe the attacker likely put in place in case their own infrastructure was compromised. It wasn't a way to unlock the data, but it was a way to communicate directly, bypassing the secure chat channels and forcing a direct line to the antagonist. The final confrontation was not a flurry of keystrokes, but a single, agonizingly slow message sent across this newly discovered line. It asked a question that had haunted the investigation. Why? Why this company? Why this level of complexity for a financial payout? The response came back instantly, chillingly devoid of emotion. You built the cage. I merely showed you the weakness in the latch. The knowledge gap surrounding the motive was finally, brutally filled. This wasn't about profit. It was about proving that no system, no matter how heavily funded or technologically advanced, was impervious to a dedicated, intelligent mind exploiting the most basic human error, the clickable link. The digital kidnapping wasn't a theft, it was a demonstration, a terrifying blueprint for the next wave of global cyber warfare, leaving the company holding the ashes of their reputation and the world watching, suddenly aware of the fragility of their own digital existence.